Right now, your Chevy engine is silently accumulating damage from habits you probably think are completely harmless, and every single one of them sends money straight into a mechanic's pocket. I've spent over 15 years tearing down Chevy engines in professional shops, and I see the exact same 13 mistakes destroying perfectly good motors week after week on trucks, on Silverados, on Equinoxes, on Camaros, engines that should have lasted 300,000 miles getting pulled at 90,000 because the owner didn't know what you're about to learn today. Mistake number 13, revving a cold engine. Something that happens in driveways across the country every single morning. You jump in your Silverado, the engine fires up, and you blip the throttle a couple of times or pull straight out and accelerate hard before that temperature gauge has moved an inch. It feels fine, the engine responds, nothing sounds wrong. But what's happening inside that motor is genuinely destructive. Here's what they don't tell you. When a Chevy engine sits overnight, oil drains down from the cylinder walls, the valve train, the turbocharger bearings on boosted engines, and it pools in the oil pan. The moment you start that engine, there is a critical window, sometimes 3 to 5 seconds, sometimes longer in cold weather, where critical components are running with almost no lubrication at all. Now, add hard acceleration to that equation, and you're dragging metal against dry metal at high speed. On the 5.3-liter L83 and the 6.2-liter L86, the variable valve timing system relies entirely on oil pressure to function correctly. Slamming the throttle before oil pressure builds destroys the cam phaser actuators. I've seen cam phaser failures on trucks with fewer than 40,000 miles, and cold revving was the #1 contributing factor. Cam phaser replacement on a Silverado runs anywhere from $2,000 to $4,500, depending on whether chains, tensioners, and guides need to go with it. The fix costs nothing. Let the engine idle for 60 to 90 seconds minimum before you drive. In temperatures below 32 degrees, give it 2 full minutes. Then drive gently for the first 2 to 3 miles. Your engine will live dramatically longer for it. Mistake number 12. Using the wrong oil viscosity walk. Into any auto parts store and grab a quart of oil off the shelf without checking your owner's manual first. And you may be making one of the most common and most damaging mistakes Chevy owners make. Oil viscosity isn't a suggestion. It is an engineering specification that was determined after millions of dollars of testing, and deviating from it has real consequences. Here's the specific problem with Chevys. GM's high feature. V8 engines, the L83, L86, and the LT1, are engineered to use zero-weight 20 or zero-weight 30 full synthetic oil. These engines use active fuel management and dynamic fuel management systems, with lifter oil galleries that are incredibly narrow. These galleries are designed for thin, fast-flowing oil. Run 10 weight 30 in one of these engines, and you've just starved those galleries of proper oil flow. The lifters don't fill correctly. The active fuel management system can't cycle properly, and the result is premature lifter failure. I had a customer bring in a 2017 Silverado 5.3 with 65,000 miles on it. The lifter ticket started around 50,000. He'd been running 10 weight 30 his whole life because that's what his dad always used. 4 lifters collapsed. The repair bill was $6,200. Check your oil cap. Check your owner's manual. If it says zero weight 20, use zero weight 20 full synthetic and nothing else. This is one of the easiest mistakes to avoid and one of the most expensive ones to ignore. Mistake number 11. Ignoring the AFM lifter time bomb. If you own a Chevy truck or SUV built between 2007 and 2021 with a 5.3-liter engine, pay very close attention, because this one could cause you more money than any other item on this list. Active fuel management, which GM calls AFM, is the cylinder deactivation system that shuts down 4 of your 8 cylinders under light load to improve fuel economy. On paper, it sounds great. In the real world, it is one of the most problematic engine technologies GM has ever put into a production vehicle. Here's the design flaw nobody talks about. The AFM lifters are collapsible. They're designed to collapse and expand thousands of times every single drive cycle. The problem is, the tiny oil passages that feed these lifters are prone to clogging with oil deposits, especially if you're running your oil changes beyond 5,000 miles, or using conventional oil instead of full synthetic. When those passages get restricted, the lifter tries to collapse but doesn't fully reset. It starts ticking. Then it starts spinning in the bore. Then it destroys the camshaft lobe. Then metal debris circulates through your entire engine. Shops that specialize in Chevy truck engines do this repair constantly. A full AFM lifter and camshaft replacement with gaskets, labor, and oil change runs $4,000 to $7,000, depending on the shop. The solution most informed Chevy owners use is an AFM disabler device. It plugs into your OBD2 port and prevents the system from ever engaging, $60 to $80. It is the single best insurance policy you can buy for a Gen 4 or Gen 5 small block with active fuel management. Mistake number 10, running cheap, conventional oil on a modern small block. The days of conventional oil being good enough for a Chevy engine ended a long time ago. But walk into any quick lube shop and tell them you drive a Silverado with a 5.3, and there is a real chance they'll try to put conventional or synthetic blend oil in your engine because it's cheaper and their margin is better. Modern Chevy engines run tighter tolerances than engines from the 1980s and 1990s. The bearing clearances are smaller. The variable valve timing systems are more sensitive. The piston ring packs are more precise. These engines need the consistent viscosity, the thermal stability, and the additive packages that only full synthetic oil provides. Here's what dealers won't tell you. The oil degradation curve on a conventional oil in a turbocharged Chevy engine, like the 2.7-liter LT G4 cylinder in the Silverado, is steep and fast. And turbocharger oil temperatures regularly exceed 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit at the bearing journals. Conventional oil at those temperatures breaks down in under 3,000 miles. The protective film between the turbo shaft and bearing shell gets thinner and thinner until metal contacts metal. A turbocharger replacement on a Silverado with the 2.7 runs $1,500 to $2,800. Full synthetic oil in the correct viscosity, changed every 5,000 miles, costs maybe $120 a year more than conventional. That math is embarrassingly simple compared to a blown turbo or a spun bearing. Mistake number 9, pouring cheap fuel injector cleaner into the tank. Every fall, the end caps in auto parts stores fill up with brightly colored bottles of fuel injector cleaner. Most of them are $5. Most of them do almost nothing, and some of them actively damage components in your Chevy's fuel system. This is a category where marketing has completely outrun reality, and Chevy owners are wasting money while making the problem worse. Here's the truth. Cheap fuel injector cleaners contain low concentrations of active cleaning chemistry. When you pour that $5 bottle into a tank with 12 to 15 gallons of gasoline, the dilution ratio makes the active ingredient nearly useless. You're essentially paying for a bottle of mildly scented gasoline additive. But here's the part that costs you money. Some low-quality fuel system cleaners contain alcohol-based solvents and petroleum distillates that can swell and degrade rubber fuel system components over time. Fuel injector O-rings, fuel pressure regulator diaphragms, and fuel pump check valves in Chevy engines are calibrated to very specific tolerances. Introduce the wrong chemistry repeatedly, and you'll develop fuel pressure irregularities, hard starts, and eventually injector seal failures. A customer with a 2019 Equinox 2.0 turbo had been using a $5 fuel cleaner every oil change. She came in with a rich running condition and a check engine light. 2 fuel injector O-rings had swelled and were leaking. $340. If you want to clean your injectors properly, use a top-tier branded product like Chevron Techron Concentrate Plus or a professional direct injection fuel system service. Do it right or skip it entirely. Mistake number 8, extended idling on Ecotech and turbocharged engines. Cold mornings and remote starters are a combination that feels luxurious, but is quietly destroying a specific category of Chevy engine, faster than almost any other habit on this list. Extended idling, meaning anything beyond 2 to 3 minutes, is particularly brutal on Chevy's turbocharged 4-cylinder engines and the Ecotec family. Here's the science behind it. When an engine idles, combustion chamber temperatures never reach optimal operating range. Fuel doesn't burn completely. Combustion byproducts, partially burned hydrocarbons, water vapor, and oil vapor from the PCV system accumulate on intake valves, piston tops, and in the oil itself. In the 2.0 LTG and the 2.5 LCV, direct injection means the intake valves never get a fuel bath to clean them off. Every minute of idle time is depositing another microscopic layer of carbon onto those valves. The turbocharger suffers in a different way. At idle, the turbo isn't spooling. It's sitting in a hot exhaust stream with minimal oil flow. That combination of heat and low lubrication is what mechanics call heat soak. It bakes varnish deposits onto the turbo shaft and accelerates bearing wear. I inspected a 2020 Trailblazer ER S2.0 turbo last spring. The owner used a remote starter every morning and let it idle for 15 to 20 minutes through an entire Minnesota winter. At 48,000 miles, the turbo had measurable shaft play. Replacement was $1,900. 2 minutes of idle time. That's all your modern Chevy needs. Then drive it gently until the temperature gauge rises. Mistake number 7. Skipping transmission. Fluid on the 8-speed. Ask a Chevy dealership service writer. If your 8-speed automatic needs a transmission fluid service, and there's a strong chance they'll tell you it's a sealed unit with lifetime fluid and you don't need to worry about it. And every time a service writer says that, a transmission rebuilder somewhere smiles. Because sealed for life means sealed until the warranty expires and your money becomes their money. The 8-speed Hydromatic 8L90 used in Silverados, Colorados, and Camaros is a sophisticated piece of engineering with aluminum valve bodies, clutch pack solenoids, and extremely tight hydraulic tolerances. It was designed to function within a specific fluid chemistry window. At the factory, it gets filled with Dexron, HP fluid, and sent out the door with an interval that benefits GM's warranty exposure, not your transmission's longevity. Here's what happens after 60,000 miles in that fluid. Heat cycles break down the friction modifiers. Aluminum wear particles from the valve body accumulate in suspension. The fluid darkens, thickens, and loses its ability to lubricate clutch pack surfaces. Shifts get lazy, then they get jerky, then a solenoid sticks. Then you're looking at a $4,000 rebuild. I've personally pulled out 8-speed fluid at 70,000 miles that looked like black motor oil and smelled like burning rubber. The factory said it was good for life. It absolutely was not. Do a partial drain and refill every 30,000 to 40,000 miles. Each service replaces roughly 40% of the fluid volume. 3 services over your ownership effectively renews the entire system gradually, without the risk of a full flush dislodging debris. Total cost per service, about $100. Total cost of ignoring it, up to $5,000. Mistake number 6, using cheap aftermarket ignition, coils. A Chevy engine misfiring is an engine that's destroying its catalytic converter. Every time a cylinder misfires, raw, unburned fuel dumps straight into your exhaust system. The catalytic converter, which operates at temperatures approaching 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, tries to burn off that excess fuel. Do that enough times and the converter's ceramic substrate overheats, cracks, and fails. A catalytic converter on a Silverado or Camaro SS runs $800 to $2,000, depending on the position and model. The number one cause of ignition misfires in modern Chevy engines is cheap aftermarket ignition coils. The temptation is understandable. A set of 8 coils from an off-brand manufacturer costs $60 to $80. A set of genuine AC Delco or Motorcraft equivalent coils costs $200 to $300. The price difference feels enormous until you understand what you're actually buying. Cheap coil housings use inferior epoxy compounds that crack under heat cycling. The internal windings are wound to looser tolerances, producing a weaker spark. In a high-compression Chevy, like the LT1 in a Camaro SS or the 6.2 in a Tahoe, A weak spark under load causes intermittent misfires that don't always trigger a check engine light immediately. By the time the light comes on, you've already partially destroyed a catalytic converter. Use AC Delco Professional Series or equivalent OE. Specification coils on every Chevy engine. The extra $150 is cheap insurance against a $2,000 exhaust repair. Dealers know this. That's why cheap coil replacements followed by converter replacements are such a reliable revenue stream. Mistake number 5, neglecting carbon buildup in direct injection engines. Pop the hood of any Chevy with direct injection and 60,000 miles of mostly city driving, and you're looking at an engine that is slowly suffocating. The Ecotec, the 2.7 LTG, and the LT family V8s all spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber, bypassing the intake valves entirely. Those valves never see a drop of gasoline. They never get cleaned. Meanwhile, the PCV system continuously routes crankcase vapors and oil mist back into the intake manifold. That oil coats the backs of the intake valves and bakes onto the hot metal every single drive. Layer by layer, a hard carbon crust builds up that looks exactly like the inside of a chimney. I pulled the manifold off a 2018 Equinox 2.0 at 72,000 miles. Carbon deposits were restricting airflow by an estimated 30%. The owner thought his engine was just getting old. Walnut blasting to fix it runs $500 to $900. A catch can installed today costs $150 and prevents it entirely. The math is not complicated. Mistake number 4, ignoring coolant service intervals. Your Chevy's coolant is doing 3 things simultaneously. It's transferring heat away from the cylinder head. It's preventing corrosion inside the block and radiator, and it's lubricating the water pump impeller. When coolant degrades, it stops doing all 3 of those things properly. And when it stops doing all 3 of those things, the consequences are catastrophically expensive. GM's Dex Cool Orange Coolant has a 5-year or 150,000 mile service interval printed on the label. But here's what that label doesn't tell you. If you've ever had a low coolant condition, if air ever entered the system through a small leak, or if the coolant was ever mixed with the wrong type of fluid, that chemistry changes dramatically. Degraded Dex Cool becomes acidic. Acidic coolant eats aluminum. Modern Chevy engines are full of aluminum. I've seen intake manifold gasket failures, water pump corrosion, and thermostat housing failures on high-feature V8s, all traced back to coolant that tested acidic and hadn't been changed in 9 or 10 years. A warped cylinder head from chronic overheating on a Silverado runs $2,000 to $4,000. A head gasket failure where coolant enters the oil runs $3,000 to $6,000. Buy a coolant test strip from any auto parts store, they cost $2. Test your Chevy's coolant twice a year. If it tests outside the acceptable range, flush the system and refill with the correct Dex Cool formulation and distilled water. $2 and 15 minutes of your time versus a $4,000 repair. Your choice. Mistake number 3, running 87. Octane in a turbocharged LTG or LSY Chevy forums will debate this forever, but after 15 years inside these engines, it is not actually debatable. If your turbocharged Chevy says premium recommended, you are damaging it every single time you run 87 octane. Here's what's happening. Boosted engines like the 2.0 LTG in the Camaro and the LSY in the Equinox Sport generates serious cylinder pressure under load. 87 octane has lower resistance to auto ignition. The air-fuel mixture can ignite before the spark plug fires. That's detonation. Your knock sensor catches it and pulls ignition timing to protect the engine. You won't hear it. You won't feel it. But over thousands of cycles, repeated pressure spikes create micro-pitting on piston crowns and ringlands that compound silently. A customer ran 87 in his 2021 Camaro Turbo for 40,000 miles, thinking he was saving $12 per fill-up. Ringland failure at 41,000 miles, $5,800. 91 octane minimum, no exceptions. Mistake number 2. Skipping oil changes. Past 7,500 miles, GM's oil life monitor is smarter than a simple mileage counter. It tracks temperature cycles, RPM data, and load history to calculate oil degradation. And it is also one of the most misunderstood features on any modern Chevy, because most owners think it's telling them when to change their oil for maximum engine life. It isn't. The monitor was designed to identify the maximum interval before an oil change would void your warranty coverage. That is a completely different goal than maximizing your engine's lifespan over 200,000 miles. A turbocharged 4-cylinder doing short city trips can read 70% allow life remaining, while that oil has already been thermally pushed to the edge of its protective range. You just can't see it happening. 2 extra oil changes per year costs about $120. A spun rod bearing or cam phaser failure starts at $1,500 and climbs fast. The monitor is a warranty tool. 5,000-mile intervals are a longevity tool. They are not the same thing. Mistake number 1. Leaving the dynamic fuel management system active without protection. This is the one that dealerships profit from more than anything else on this list. If you own a Silverado, Tahoe, or Suburban from 2019 onward with the 5.3 or 6.2, dynamic fuel management is a ticking clock inside your engine, where the older AFM system deactivated 4 cylinders. DFM cycles anywhere from 1 to 7 cylinders in and out of operation, hundreds of times per drive cycle. Every single transition demands a precise pulse of oil pressure to collapse and re-engage those lifters correctly. When owners stretch oil changes past 7,000 miles, use the wrong viscosity, or skip a change during a busy season, those narrow DFM oil galleries get restricted. A lifter doesn't reset. It starts spinning in its bore at highway speed, destroys the cam lobe, and sends metal debris through the entire engine. Full engine replacement on a Silverado runs $8,000 to $15,000. I've seen this failure more times in the last 4 years than AFM failures in the entire decade before it. The fix is simple. Install a range technology disabler into your OBD2 port for $60 to $80. Run mobile, 10 weight 20 full synthetic. Change it every 5,000 miles without exception. Disable it, protect it. Do not ignore it. You just learned 13 things that are sending Chevy owners to dealerships and independent shops and handing over thousands of dollars that could have stayed in their pockets. The common thread through every single one of these mistakes is that the damage is invisible until it's catastrophic and expensive. Oil degradation, carbon buildup, lifter wear, none of it announces itself until it's already too late. The good news is every single one of these 13 things is preventable starting today, and most of them cost less than $50 to address properly. How many of these mistakes have you been making without realizing it? Drop a comment below and tell me which one surprised you the most. If this video just saved you from a repair bill, smash that subscribe button and share this with every Chevy owner you know. Their engines will thank you. I'll see you in the next one.